If you really want to know what Trump is thinking about trade, there is a book out there. It's called No Such Thing as Free Trade. It was written by 𝗣𝗿𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗃, who was the trade representative of Trump in the first administration. He's saying that imposing a tariff on China, 60%, 20% on the rest of the world, including Canada. And the point that I'm making on all those charts, that is going to bark a lot, but is not going to bite. What I mean by that is the following. First of all, those manufacturing jobs, they're not coming back. They went down, as you can see in the chart, before NAFTA, after NAFTA, before China entered the WTO, and after China entered the WTO, before Trump and after Trump and during Trump. Clearly, this is not about trade, this is about technology. So those jobs are not coming back. Now, we do know that tariffs, as you can see in another chart there, tariffs do work. What do I mean by that? Is that during the trade war between China and the US in the 2017-18, we have seen trade, namely exports from China, going down dramatically, exports from China to the US. At the same time, there is another line there, as you can see, showing that exports from other countries to the US went up dramatically. I'm talking about Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Mexico, South Korea, Vietnam. So they basically gained all the market share that China lost. Now, China, and that's the next chart, is not very stupid. Basically, they know that they need the US market. So how do you enter the US market in the back door? Through entering those countries. So if you look at the exports from China to those countries, if you look at foreign direct investment from China to those countries, it's going to the sky, which means that China is basically trying to get to the US through a trade proxy infrastructure, basically using those countries to enter the US. Basically, half of Mexico is owned by China. What does it mean for Trump? All of a sudden, a trade war with China is not just with China, but it's with all those proxies. And that's where he's going to lose. Why? Because 35% of US exports is going to those countries outside China. So basically, if you have a trade war and those countries are going to retaliate against you, you are basically risking losing access to the fastest growing segment of the global economy, which is the consumer of emerging markets. Trump cannot afford doing that because he will lose his pence. This is simply too expensive for him. That's going to impact the manufacturing sector dramatically, his base. And therefore, I believe he's going to bark a lot. He's going to make a lot of noise, but he's not going to bite. The way NAFTA 2 was exactly like NAFTA 1, despite all the noise. So he will use all those tariffs and, language to win points in negotiations, but he's not going to utilize them because he simply cannot do it. It's going to be too costly for him. That's the way I see the situation.
So regardless of the... So I guess you're saying regardless of the presidential outcome, it will not necessarily impact the US's connection and with free trade with China, as well as those emerging markets as well.
I think it will not be as significant as perceived. I think that clearly when it comes to some goods and services, especially when it comes to national security, health, they will bring back a lot of production. But that's something that is not going to be very different between Biden and Harris. They will do the same thing. Between Trump and Harris. What Trump is saying about 60% tariff on China and 20% tariff on the rest is simply wishful thinking. It's not going to happen because the cost of the US will be very significant. So again, he will use it as a bargaining tool, but he's not going to implement it the way it was the case in the first administration of Trump. Basically, a lot of noise about NAFTA, and NAFTA 2 was basically the same as like NAFTA 1. But it will introduce a lot of volatility. People will be nervous about it, and that will impact markets.
I see. And does that have to do with one of your previous slides where you're looking at a lot of people putting their investments into GICs because of
exactly.
avoiding the volatility?
The impact on the GIC was due to higher interest rates. There is basically 95% correlation between GIC and interest rates. When interest rates in Canada went up dramatically by 5%, from 0 to 5%, basically, people rediscovered that they use GIC and get 5-6%. Everybody did it. So we accumulated a lot of money. I estimate that about $370 billion of excess savings are now in GICs. Now, interest rates are going down. I'll talk about interest rates in a second. Interest rates are going down, which means that this money will be exiting GICs. I suggest that about $370 billion are looking for the exit, looking for direction, and they will find it in dividend-paying stocks. This is something that we haven't seen in generations. So much money looking for return. They will get out of GICs because interest rates will go down from 5% to 2% or 2.5%. That will not be enough to compensate them. They will have to go somewhere else. Dividends are extremely attractive. High-quality stocks that pay dividends are extremely attractive. That by itself will support the stock market.